In every society, there are people who quietly change the world through the dedication to their call. As unassuming as they are, their footprints in the sands of time become engraved in our history and impact our future. Wilfred J. Alexander was such a person. WJ, as he was fondly called, grew up in Archer Street, Belmont, with his two brothers, Cecil and Felix. Hailing from a family of intellectuals, WJ followed his heart into teaching and became a schoolmaster at St. Mary's College. He was known for his stern looks and staunch adherence to discipline, and so it was no surprise that he felt led to pursue law in London.
Certainly a very meticulous lawyer, very careful, would dot the I's, cross the T's, analyzed everything very carefully, and would raise points which, one ordinarily would not have seen because of his very, as I say, meticulous approach to his work. And one learnt a lot from him that way. He was very disciplined, and he worked very hard. He always came back the next day after you met. He would come back and go through a new version with you. And he believed in preparing his cases thoroughly.
During his time there, WJ was initiated into politics through his association with the League of Colored Peoples, a civil rights organization dedicated to bringing equality to the black population residing in Britain. On his return to Trinidad, he and other progressive Afro-Creoles who were inspired by the work of Dr. Eric Williams became a part of the formidable Political Education Group, which discussed the country's political, economic, and social life. By 1955, Dr. Williams assumed leadership of the group, and by January of the following year, they launched the still-standing political party, the People's National Movement.
Wilfred Alexander was one of the architects of the construction of the PNM, in the sense that he was one of the authors of the party's constitution and its statement of principles, which was called the People's Charter. He was the first, among the first two PNM members to serve as nominated members in the Senate. When the then Chief Minister successfully negotiated two party senators with the Secretary of State for the Colonies to give the PNM a working majority in Parliament in 1956 after the general elections.
Appointed as the party's second vice chairman, Wilfred J. Alexander meticulously kept the records of every matter concerning the formation and development of this new party. His broad base of knowledge, aptitude for administration, and ability to discern and persuade even the wittiest minds set him above his colleagues. It was no surprise that Dr. Williams chose him as his right-hand man.
He served as legal advisor both to the Chief Minister, who subsequently became Premier and Prime Minister, and the Cabinet. He never accepted, in spite of requests from the Chief Minister, the Premier, of course they were all one and Prime. He never accepted a ministerial portfolio. Apparently, he had a very romantic relation with his legal profession, which he continued to practice even while he was a minister without portfolio and legal advisor to the Executive Council, which subsequently became the Cabinet in 1958.
It is a unique situation because I can't remember any other professional person or any person who was a minister without a portfolio as such, and yet was advising the government in that way. I think he might be the only person who had that, privilege, if I could put it that way. And to allow him to do that too must have meant that the then Prime Minister would have been Dr. Williams. had a lot of confidence in him.
For 5 years after his appointment in 1956, Wilfred J. Alexander served on this nation's Legislative Council and in 1959 was part of the quartet which held talks with the Colonial Office to draft the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. WJ continued to use his legal prowess in many governmental affairs, including the Great March of 1960 in the fight to regain Chaguaramas from U.S. control. Noted as one of his greatest accomplishments is his elevation to Queen's Counsel status.
And I was fortunate to work with him on a number of matters. At the time, he was senior counsel, or Queen's Counsel, working for, I remember, the Port Authority, Tech, Textile, a number of those corporate bodies.
His legal profession also concretized that, passion in him. He studied constitutional law, he studied that type of thing, and my experience with him was one of very perfect in the way he did things and in that regard. So I think he fulfilled that dream and desire by participating in putting his hat in the political arena.
Another achievement was his role in the 17-member contingent who successfully negotiated Trinidad and Tobago's independence from British rule in 1962. As milestones in his journey, Wilfred J. Alexander was able to skillfully and successfully handle negotiations in intergovernmental palavers, contribute to studies by government commissions in public health, champion the need for a protective body for cane farmers, and seek the interest of his local fellow men in enabling them to be appointed to public office. However, none of this acclaim went to his head. Although he had every opportunity to attain high status, WJ insisted that his political career remain behind the scenes.
He would have been very instrumental in most of the meetings in terms of the development of Trinidad, in terms of independence, self-government, and all those things. And we have, his involvement with that was to sort of give guidance at that level. Okay, and I think there was his strength, really, in being the political advisor to the Prime Minister, and that is what he was, considered as, more than anything else. I think he was satisfied and content to be part of a very vibrant team in the formation of the Trinidad as we know it, and the development of the various stages of the evolving of Trinidad as an independent nation, because I think he would have been in the cut and thrust and an integral part in bringing that home to Trinidad. And I think that to me was satisfaction enough for him.
WJ hardly ever took to a stage to deliver a party campaign speech, nor was he one to mingle much with his colleagues at the after-work socials. Most people that knew him would often comment on his reserved, introverted nature.
He was always a very private person. I never had an intimate relations with him. My only association with him was at the party level. He was always a very quiet, unassuming, not a sort of ostentatious character. So it would be very difficult for someone like me who didn't know him personally. I knew him at the party level, to give a proper assessment of his values outside of the political arena.
Was not a very vocal person in the sense of speaking too much, but he was very measured. He used, I think I have the right term, his choice of words and the manner of speech was very economical. Very economical.
After years of working tirelessly in the legal and political arenas, Wilfred J. Alexander retired to a serene life at his home in Diego Martin, with only his nephew to take care of him.
With politics, when you're out of the limelight, what happens to you, you become a lonely person. And he was a lonely person in terms of just having his immediate family. He'd come home to have, you know, lunch with us, so even when he couldn't move again because he suffered with tremendous arthritis. I was his main heir. I was more or less the person who would have been closest to him. As he said one day, he said, "Errol, you are my legs." You're my, because he couldn't walk too well, so he still, in spite of everything, tried to maintain his pride in going to the bank, do his business, you see, in a way that he didn't give up. He never gave up. He kept fighting to the end, all right? And he was that type of person to still share his knowledge in whatever way with who want to listen, and he was an avid reader. He had a tremendous amount of novels and books, so he had a wealth of knowledge. And what I would say down to the end, his brain was as active and as, you know, vibrant as a young boy, down to the end. So that is something that I think gave him some sort of satisfaction in those years.
W.J. noted in writing that he desired a quiet send-off, and so it was when he passed at the age of 78.
Well, he was a very disciplined person. And in those days, one had to be to work with somebody like Dr. Williams for 14 years. You certainly and enjoyed a cloistered relationship. One certainly had to have these exemplary characteristics: discipline, punctuality, performance. To survive 14 years with Dr. Williams as legal advisor to the cabinet, he must have been doing something.
A man full of integrity, and he maintained that decorum throughout, and that had nothing to do really with the political positions which he may have held, but that is something that was ingrained in him, in his background and in his personal stature.
A man whose life is filled with accolades, who walked side by side with Dr. Eric Williams for many years, and now who is celebrated as a prominent parliamentarian, Wilfred J. Alexander.